Hello YouTube and welcome to the next route learning video. On today's video we're going to be revisiting the East Coast Main Line South route, and I'm going to be driving a First Capital Connect liveried Class 365 between London King's Cross and Peterborough, which is a distance of just under 72 miles. Along the way we will be calling at Biggleswade, St Neots, Huntingdon and then finally Peterborough, where we're going to have a few minutes to wait, at which point I'm then going to show some shots of trains passing while we're waiting at Peterborough, before then driving the half a mile from Peterborough Station to Peterborough Nene Carriage Sidings. I have previously made a video on this route in the direction between London and Peterborough in a Class 91, however that scenario was mostly at night time, and many people have requested that I make a video in the Class 365 on the East Coast Main Line South route. So I chose this scenario as there's a different stopping pattern, although it is mostly a fast line run. We will also have a short section on the slow line which we didn't in the previous video. But in addition to that, with the new PC and the graphics settings that I can now use, I felt that this scenario being at daytime really helped to show off just how great this route can look. And so I really do hope that you enjoy the journey and enjoy the scenery. I think that this is actually now one of the better routes that Dovetail Games have made. Now I've been able to drive it with such high graphics settings. The scenario that I've chosen is an Armstrong Powerhouse scenario from Armstrong Powerhouse Pack 36, and the scenario is called 1P04 1840 King's Cross to Peterborough. Unfortunately, this scenario was made before the Class 91 came out, so we won't be seeing that on the journey today as AI, and all of the fast line trains representing East Coast trains will be operated by HSTs instead. The Class 365 is part of the Networker family of electric multiple units and has been in service since 1995. It was constructed between 1994 and 1995 by ABB York, and there are a total of 41 of these trains built, with 40 currently in service, one having been written off at the Potters Bar rail crash in 2002. The units are formed of 4 coaches per train, with a maximum speed of 100 miles per hour and a power output of 1,684 horsepower per 4-coach unit. The total weight of each unit is 151.5 tonnes. Once in the cab of the Class 365, there's not a lot that I need to do to set up for starting, so the first thing I am going to do is put the reversing handle into the forward position and then reset the AWS self-test sequence. So the train is now in forward. The next thing that I'm going to do is turn on the instrument lights just here with the dash lights button there, and then I'm also going to turn on the headlights with the H key. So you can see that the headlights have now come on. Now the next thing I'm going to do is set the speed set, as the maximum permitted speed of this train is 100 miles per hour, and we will be travelling on lines with a higher speed limit. I just find it's easier to try and maintain the speed using the speed set. So I'm going to turn the knob, you can probably see it turning there, and what I need to do is I need to set it to around 105, simply because if you set it to 100 the train will actually maintain a speed closer to 95 miles per hour. So now you can see the bug on the outside of the speedometer there is pointing at 105. So at this point I'm now going to click the button above the speed set knob that says speed set active, and when I click on that you can see that it is now yellow. This now means that the train won't exceed the speed to which I've set it. As you can see, we've got the speedometer there with the red line indicating the maximum permitted speed of 100 miles per hour. And then just to the left of that we have the brake gauge, which works very much like the brake gauges in the majority of British Rail EMUs and DMUs. And down here we have the combined traction and brake controller, the middle position off being idle, and then we have 4 steps of power as you can see there. And then going the other way we have a standard West Code 3-step brake, so we're going to step 1, 2 and then step 3, which is full service, and then finally the emergency setting. I will try and not go above step 2 braking on the journey today. I would also like to point out at this point that I am using the Armstrong Powerhouse sound pack. As a result of that, the sounds are more realistic than the default sounds which come with the train, and as a result I also have a 2-tone horn controlled with the spacebar and the B key, like so. Unfortunately, the driver safety device has not been simulated on the Class 365, whereas it would be on the train in real life. Again, I'm not quite sure why that is, simply because the Class 465, which was also made by Dovetail Games, does come with the driver safety device, so I'm just not quite sure why the inconsistency there. One other thing to point out is that the windows don't open on this train, unfortunately, which is why you won't see me open them on the journey today. Now that we've had a look around the cab, we're pretty much ready to depart. Departing London King's Cross, the starting speed limit is 15 miles per hour, and we've got around 41¼ miles to go to the next stop, which is Biggleswade. So now that we've reached 15 miles per hour, I've idled the power and I'm allowing the train to coast until we can accelerate further, although there will be an increasing gradient as we enter Gasworks Tunnel just ahead, and halfway through the tunnel we will then pass a speed board marking an increase in the speed limit to 45 miles per hour, though we won't actually be able to accelerate to that speed until we're almost at the end of the tunnel. So as we pass through Gasworks Tunnel here, we're also passing under the Regent's Canal. In a moment I will apply power as required just to ensure that the train doesn't slow down too quickly, and so I'm going to go up to notch 1 of power just to bring the speed back up towards 15 miles per hour, before then idling the power once again. As you probably noticed, we have now passed the 45 mile per hour speed limit board, and we can accelerate towards that speed limit just as we get towards the end of the tunnel, as we approach the green signal which you can see just ahead. I have now just lost a little bit too much speed, so I'm giving some power again to bring the speed back up towards 15 miles per hour. And so we can now accelerate up towards 45 miles per hour, as at this point I can be sure that the rear of the train has cleared the speed limit. The structure that you can see coming up just ahead that we're about to pass under carries the high speed line from London St Pancras towards Ebbsfleet, and ultimately the Channel Tunnel into France. I'm now cutting the power back for a moment until we can accelerate further. The speed limit here is now going up to 65 miles per hour as we enter Copenhagen Tunnel here. There's no clear marker where I can say we can accelerate at that exact point, so I just waited a few seconds after entering the tunnel, and now I've gone back up to full power to accelerate up towards 65 miles per hour. I'm now cutting the power back once again, as in a moment the speed limit will then be going up to 80 miles per hour, but I want to ensure that we don't break the current speed limit before we reach the 80 board. In fact, the 80 mile per hour speed board is just coming up now. We now accelerate just as we approach this signal here. I'm now going into full power to accelerate up towards 80 miles per hour. The structure you can now see on the right hand side is Emirates Stadium, which is the home of Arsenal Football Club. As we're now reaching 80 miles per hour, I'm cutting the power back once again just to ensure that I don't break the speed limit. The speed limit will be going up again very shortly to 90 miles per hour, and we're now passing the 90 mile per hour speed board. We can accelerate towards that as we enter the platform here at Finsbury Park Station. Do apologise for the lag here. One of the things that I noticed with this route when practising this journey is that towards the south there is a bit of lag, which unfortunately I can't do anything about, but as we head further north and out of London, the lag will gradually reduce. We're now passing Haringey Station. The speed limit here is now going up to 95 miles per hour, so I've just increased the power a small amount to gradually bring the speed up towards 95. On the right hand side here, we're now passing Hornsey EMU depot. We're now passing through Hornsey Station. Should be able to see here now that the speed is slowly crawling up towards 95 miles per hour. I'm just leaving the power setting at this point until we can accelerate further. The speed limit will soon be going up to 100 miles per hour. We're now passing Alexandra Palace Station. At this point the Hertford Loop diverges to rejoin us at Stevenage, and on the right just there you can see Bounds Green Depot, which is the main maintenance depot for East Coast trains, which today would be Virgin Trains East Coast. We're now passing Wood Green Tunnel. As we depart from Wood Green Tunnel, the speed limit is now going up to 100 miles per hour, so I'm going to go up to full power in a moment, and with the speed set on I then shouldn't need to do anything, as the train should maintain the speed at around 98 to 99 miles per hour. We're now passing through New Southgate Station. We're now passing through Barnet Tunnel. As you probably just noticed, the speed limit has now gone up to 115 miles per hour. However, that won't affect us as we are limited to 100. So the 115 speed limit would be for HSTs, Class 91s, or Class 180s, which currently travel along this route on high-speed express services. The station that we just passed through was Oakley Park. We're now passing New Barnet Station. We're now passing through Hadley Wood South Tunnel. Immediately after the tunnel is Hadley Wood Station, and then immediately after the station is Hadleywood North Tunnel. Just like to point out here that we are currently travelling on the Down Fast line, and unlike a number of main lines in the UK, the East Coast main line is set up so that the track to our left is in fact the slow line heading in the same direction as us, and so the two tracks to the right of us are both of them are for the opposite direction, with the track in the middle for the fast line and the track on the outside for the slow line. We're now passing through Potter's Bar Tunnel, which I believe is the longest tunnel on the line. I hope that you can already see just how much better the route looks now with the increased graphics settings. And as I already mentioned, I think it's really quite stunning, and I think it's one of the better routes that Dovetail Games have made. And I'm very much enjoying driving on this, and I would like to make another video at some point in the southerly direction in a Class 321 on a stopping service. We're now passing through Potter's Bar Station. I'm also looking forward to the eventual release of the Class 313 and 315 from wagons, which I assume will be released through Armstrong Powerhouse, as the suburban stopping services between King's Cross and Welwyn Garden City are actually operated in real life by Class 313s. So again, that will increase the video potential for this route. It would also increase the video potential for the Great Eastern Main Line, where they use Class 315s on the stopping services between London Liverpool Street and Shenfield. We're now passing Brookman's Park. We're now passing Welham Green. We're now passing Hatfield Station. Since I made the last video, I've been testing more and more routes out just to see how they perform, and I'm pleased to say that there's been a great increase in performance on all of the routes which I've tried out, and so I'm particularly keen on very shortly making some more videos on the West Coast Main Line, both the Trent Valley route, West Coast Main Line over Shap, and also West Coast Main Line North. And I'm also planning on revisiting the Great Eastern Main Line, as well as the London to Brighton route and the Woodhead line, so there's a good number of videos to be working on there, in addition to trying to make some more route guides and train guides. And I'm hoping that within the next month or so I can start working on a US signalling guide as well, just so that I've got signalling guides then for all 3 of the major countries with routes to feature in Train Simulator. We're now passing through Welwyn Garden City, and it looks like I have a double yellow signal ahead, so I now have to start braking to slow down, assuming that I've got a red signal 2 signal sections ahead. I know that these signal sections here are quite long, so initially I'm just making a step 1 brake application until we reach the next signal. If that is then displaying a single yellow aspect, I will continue to brake and brake a bit harder, just so that I can be sure I'm going slow enough should the following signal then be displaying a red aspect. Indeed, this is displaying a single yellow aspect, so I'm slowing down further. At this point, the 4 tracks that we've been travelling along, they form into 2 tracks. And so we've got a short double track section, which is commonly known as the bottleneck, simply because when you've got the traffic from 4 tracks going into the traffic for, well, going into a 2-track section, should I say, to word it correctly, then you just find that that section can get quite busy and ultimately cause delays for a number of trains. It looks like that the signal ahead has cleared, so I'm not going to accelerate at this point, but just allow us to coast, as that signal is still displaying a cautionary yellow aspect. We're now crossing Welwyn Viaduct, and in a moment we're going to be passing through Welwyn North Station, the platforms of which you can see just ahead. So we're now passing through Welwyn North Station, and we're just about to enter the first of 2 tunnels here at Welwyn North, which are simply called the Welwyn North Tunnels. As you can see, the signal has now cleared to green, so I'm increasing the power to accelerate back up towards 100 miles per hour. In a moment, the speed limit will be going up to the maximum speed on this route, which is 125 miles per hour, though again that won't affect us with the maximum permitted speed being 100. After passing through the second of the Welwyn North tunnels, we then have no tunnels between here and Peterborough. The speed limit has now gone up to 125 miles per hour, and in a moment the 2 tracks will be going back into 4 tracks once again, and we will then remain as 4 tracks all of the way to Huntingdon, which is around 40 to 50 miles from here. We're now passing Nebworth Station. The Hertford loop, which diverged away from us at Alexandra Palace, is now rejoining just here, just before Stevenage Station. Unfortunately, the scenery is not there for the Hertford loop on the route in the game. Though the track has been laid, the scenery hasn't been placed, so I'm hoping that in a future update the Hertford loop may be included, but for now, unless you want to drive in a pretty open green area with nothing to see, then I don't recommend checking it out or driving along there. We're now passing Stevenage Station. At Stevenage we had 13.5 miles to go to our stop at Biggleswade. We're now passing through Hitchin Station, and diverging to the right just here is the line to Cambridge. This was a point of congestion for a long time, as you can see here that trains had to cross from the track to the left of us, all the way across all of the lines to get to the Cambridge line diverging to the right just there. However, I believe that today there has now been a flyover built, which means that trains coming from the track to the left of us can then cross the lines by means of a flyover without blocking the lines to any oncoming trains. At Hitchin Station we had 9.25 miles to go to our stop at Biggleswade. As we get towards Biggleswade, what I'm going to do is, just after we pass through the next station, Arlesey, which is the final station before Biggleswade, I'm then going to start counting the signals so that I know how far away I am from our stop, and ultimately I believe it's at the 4th signal after Arlesey station where I need to put on the brakes and start slowing down for Biggleswade. At Arlesey we will then have around 4¼ miles to go to Biggleswade station. We're now passing Biggleswade station with 4¼ miles to go. The next signal just here I'm not counting as part of the signal count, so now at the next signal from this point we've then got 3 miles to go to Biggleswade. At the second signal from this point we've then got 2½ miles to go to Biggleswade. At the third signal after this point we've got 1 2/3 mile to go. And then finally we need to apply the brakes on the AWS ramp for the 4th signal on a step 2 brake application. So the first signal is coming up just here, and at this point we've got 3 miles to go. We're now passing the second signal, indicating that we've got 2½ miles to go. We're now passing the third signal, indicating 1 2/3 mile to go, so it's on the next AWS ramp that I want to be applying the brakes for Biggleswade station. I have now shut off the power to allow the train to coast, ready to apply the brakes in a moment. So I've now made a step 2 brake application just as we cross the AWS ramp there, and that should bring our speed down quite nicely. I will add some braking if required to ensure that we do slow down in time. I'm aiming to enter the platform at around 30 miles per hour. Any faster and it might be difficult to stop. Here at Biggleswade we do need to stop at the end of the platform to fit all of the 8 coaches in. So I'm just cutting the braking back slightly as I felt we were slowing down slightly too early. Now going back up to step 2 just to ensure that we are down to 30 in time, which we are now. So I've just released the brakes for a moment and now I'm reapplying the brakes to bring our speed down further. At this point I'm just going to fan the brakes between step 1 and step 2 to bring the speed down gently for our stopping point, which is by the S sign you can see with the CCTV monitors at the end of the platform. And so here we are, arrival at Biggleswade. Departing from Biggleswade, the starting speed limit is 125 miles per hour, which is 100 miles per hour for us, and we've got just over 10.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is St Neots. And so I've quickly gone up to full power and we're now accelerating straight away back up towards 100 miles per hour. The acceleration rate in a class 365 is pretty good, so it shouldn't take us long until we're doing pretty close to 100 once again. We're now back up to 90 miles per hour, and at this point the acceleration rate will slow down a bit, though 90 is certainly a comfortable speed to be travelling at. The next landmark I'm looking out for is the next station we pass through, which is Sandy. We're now passing through Sandy Station, and at this point we've got around 7.5 miles to go to St Neots. Very shortly we're going to receive some pop-up messages indicating that these signals are displaying incorrect aspects. In fact, what we should be receiving is diverging route aspects, as we're going to cross onto the slow line to our left, just before St Neots station. And unfortunately it doesn't seem that the signals have been programmed correctly, so they won't display that. So when the pop-up says, as it does now, incorrect signal aspect, please treat the signal ahead as a double yellow. What it should actually be saying is, please treat the signal ahead as a flashing double yellow, as we're not going to get a red signal due to crossing over onto the track to the left. So at this point we've now got the flashing double yellow, and the next signal, which will be displaying a double yellow aspect, should actually be treated as a flashing single yellow, as it says there. So at this point I'm now going to start braking to bring our speed down. Just after the following signal from this one, which will be displaying a single yellow aspect with a feather indicator, the speed limit will then be dropping to 40 miles per hour as we cross the junction onto the slow line. So I've now got the brakes in step 1 and I'm gently bringing the speed down. As I see the next signal ahead, I will then brake a bit more, just to ensure that I've slowed down to 40 in time for the junction to the left. Just releasing the brakes momentarily as I feel that I've slowed down slightly too quickly. I'm now reapplying the brakes to bring us down to 40. St Neots station is almost immediately after the junction, so I won't need any power after crossing the points with the speed limit going back up again. And at this point I'm just going to allow us to coast at 40 miles per hour. You can see the platforms at St Neots coming up, so I'm going to brake in a moment just to ensure that we don't enter the platform at any faster than 30 miles per hour. We're supposed to stop next to the 8-car stop sign here, but it seems that it's been misplaced, as if I stop next to that sign, then the rear of the train won't actually fit in the platform. So what I'm going to do is stop just a little bit beyond that sign to ensure that the whole train is in. We've now got the 4 and the 8 coach sign just coming up there on the right hand side, but I'm aiming to stop, as I said, a little bit further up. And so once we pass this next white post just here, we should be stopping in about the right place. Here we are, arrival at St Neots. Departing from St Neots, the starting speed limit is 80 miles per hour, and we've got just over 7 miles to go to the next stop, which is Huntingdon. However, departing from the station here, I'm going to drive with caution, as the previous signal was a single yellow signal, and although I'm almost certain the next signal will be clear simply because it was a routing signal, I need to be sure on that before I accelerate fully. Indeed, we can now see our signal just here coming up, and it is displaying a green aspect, so I can now accelerate up towards 80 miles per hour. I'm going to manually control the speed at around 80 rather than reducing the speed set. And so what I'm going to need to do is cut the power back to idle as we reach 80 miles per hour, and then just go between idle and step 1 to maintain the speed. At the next signal after this overbridge, we've then got just under a mile to go to the next speed change, which is a reduction in the speed limit down to 75 miles per hour. In a moment I'm going to idle the power, and then I'm going to brake just before the next signal as the 75 speed limit comes into force at that signal. You can now see the next signal just coming up, so I've applied one step of braking just to bring the speed down to 75, and now that we're down to 75 I'm going to allow the train to coast, and much like if we were doing 80 miles per hour, I'm going to go between idle and notch 1 of power to try and maintain our speed. I'm still going between idle and notch 1 power at present to try and maintain the speed, as we're now back up to 75 and just going back to idle again. The speed limit will soon be going back up to 80 miles per hour, and at that point I'm just simply going to go into notch 1 of power to gradually bring the speed up towards 80. We're now passing the 80 speed board. I'm already in notch 1 of power, so I'm just going to leave the train in that power setting, and at this point we've got 2 3/4 miles to go to Huntingdon. As you can probably see, I do now have a single yellow signal, and a single yellow at this point means that the signal guarding the end of the platform at Huntingdon is currently displaying a red aspect. So I am now slowing us down quite quickly, as the TPWS system is actually at this end of the platform just before entering it, and if I cross that at faster than 20 miles per hour, the emergency brakes will then be applied. Also do note that I got a single yellow signal rather than a double yellow, because on the slow line along here, it's actually 3 aspect signal operation rather than the 4 aspect signal operation of the fast line. Now approaching the TPWS loop. And at this point I am now doing below 20 miles per hour. As it happens, the signal at the end of the platform has cleared from red, and in fact it's now displaying a green aspect, which means that it wouldn't affect us and the emergency brakes wouldn't be applied approaching the signal at a faster speed. However, this is Huntingdon Station, so I'm not going to accelerate at this point. I'm just going to gradually bring us to a stop. And here at Huntingdon, I do need to aim to stop at the end of the platform. Here we are, arrival at Huntingdon. Departing from Huntingdon, the starting speed limit is 80 miles per hour, though it is very shortly going down to 40 as we cross some points back onto the fast line. And we've got just over 17.5 miles to go to our next and final stop, which is Peterborough. As we're now reaching 40 miles per hour, I've just cut the power back to ensure that we don't break the speed limit, and the power is now in idle just as we cross the points here back onto the down fast line. Shortly after crossing the points, the 125 mile per hour speed limit will come back into force, and indeed I can accelerate as we cross this bridge just here. So now we're on the bridge, I can now accelerate up towards 100 miles per hour, and indeed there will be no speed changes that affect us between here and the outskirts of Peterborough. One thing which I don't think I pointed out earlier is that although I'm still using the standard FOV that I normally use of 85 in this video, I did feel that I was just situated too far back in the cab for this train and the window was too small. It just didn't feel quite right. So what I've done is I've zoomed in one notch on the mouse wheel just because I feel that that gives an overall better view, and although I can't quite see all of the controls, the impression just feels much more realistic than when sat further back. You may notice that at this point we're now down to 3 tracks, and that's because the slow line in the up direction towards London isn't there at this point, and it's only the slow line heading south, sorry, should I say north towards Peterborough on the down line, which is still here until we reach the area around Conington Loops, where just after Conington Loops we then reduce to double track all of the way to the outskirts of Peterborough. We're now passing Conington Loops and Sidings, and at this point we've got around 9.5 miles to go to Peterborough, and in a moment the tracks will be going into double track, as I mentioned, and we'll then be running double track to Peterborough. We're now passing a Morpeth board for a speed reduction down to 105 miles per hour, which we can ignore as that won't affect us. Speed limit has now dropped to 105 miles per hour, and in a moment it's going to drop a bit further down to 100 miles per hour, which again won't affect us. We've now got the Morpeth board warning for the upcoming 100 speed restriction. The speed limit has now dropped to 100 miles per hour, though in a short distance it will be increasing once again to 115 miles per hour. Once the speed limit has gone back up to 115, we've then got 4.5 miles to go to Peterborough. So we've just passed the 115 board, indicating 4.5 miles to go. What I'm looking out for next is an adverse signal, indicating that we will in fact be turning off the fast line onto a slow line to our left, which we will have just before Peterborough itself, on the outskirts of Peterborough. And as we cross the point there, the speed limit will be down to 40 miles per hour. So we've now got a double yellow signal, which is just under 1 mile from the 40 mile per hour speed limit, and at this point I'm now going to start braking. So initially a light brake application, I will then increase the braking in a moment as required. The speed limit will be dropping to 40 miles per hour just after the next signal. I've now gone up to step 2 of braking, as I don't think that we're slowing down quick enough. In fact, just for a moment I've gone as hard as step 3 braking to bring the speed down still further to ensure that we slow down in time. In fact, I quite misjudged that. But it seems that I will be down to 40 in time. Indeed, the speed limit has now dropped to 40. And I've slowed down slightly too much due to the hard braking that I had to use there. So in the future, I'd just suggest if you were driving this, just to brake slightly earlier on step 2 braking. So I should have gone to step 2 braking immediately passing the double yellow signal. The speed limit along here is now going up to 50 miles per hour. However, I'm not going to accelerate to that simply because we are operating under a single yellow signal. So I need to make sure that we don't end up going through a red, and I'm driving with caution at this point, even though I'm very certain that the signal was a single yellow because we were crossing onto this track. I can now see some repeaters just ahead, indicating that the signal will be clear, but we will be diverging to the right. So at this point I can be certain that we're not going to go through any red signals. This bridge here is crossing the River Nene, which indeed the nearby Nene Valley Railway is named after, and also Peterborough Nene Carriage Sidings, which we will be passing in a couple of minutes. We're now passing the Nene Carriage Sidings, so I should have said which we will actually be driving into after departing from Peterborough Station, back in the opposite direction. We'll be driving into the carriage sidings on our left there. In a moment, the speed limit is dropping to 30 miles per hour, so I'm just braking now just to ensure that I have slowed down to 30 in time. And now that I'm doing 30, I'm just allowing the train to coast without any power. And we shouldn't need to add any power at this point as we approach Peterborough Station. I am going to need to brake a bit more through the platform as the signal at the end of the platform is red, and I don't want to be tripped by the TPWS grid, so I need to ensure that I'm doing below 20 miles per hour by the point at which I cross that grid. The TPWS grid should be coming up in a moment, and I am now doing below 20 as we enter the platform here. Here at Peterborough, I need to aim to stop at the 8-car stop sign, which is towards the end of the platform. You can see the 8-car stop sign is just coming up on the left now, and so I should now be stopping in about the right place. So here we are, arrival at Peterborough. At this point we've now got a few minutes to wait before I need to turn round and head to the carriage sidings, so I'm just going to go outside and show you some shots of various trains arriving and departing, and then afterwards we'll get back in the cab and drive the half a mile to Nene Carriage Sidings. I've now changed ends, ready for the departure into Peterborough Nene Carriage Sidings, so I'm just going to start moving here at this point, giving us a little bit of power. The starting speed limit is 30 miles per hour, and we've got just over half a mile to go to the carriage sidings themselves. The speed limit will shortly be dropping to 15 miles per hour, so I'm not going to go much above 20, and now we're reaching 20 at this point. I'm now shutting off the power. Just going to idle at this point and allow the train to coast. Just after crossing this point to the right just here, and then going to brake for the upcoming 15 speed limit, which will be on the next point as we turn to the left. I'm now going to coast at 15 miles per hour for the remainder of the journey into the siding. I won't need to give us any more power, as this should be just the right speed to hold us. Once I stop in the siding, I'm not going to have much chance to say anything else before the scenario ends automatically. So at this point, I just wanted to say thank you for watching this video. I really do hope that you've enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, please don't forget that you can find me on Facebook for the latest updates, the link of which is in the description of this video. And if you value the work that I do and would like to sponsor me towards the cost of new equipment and future projects, then please visit my Patreon page for further information. Again, the link for that is in the description of this video. So I'm now just going to gently bring the speed down as we get towards the buffers. I'm aiming to stop at the end of the siding here just as the buffers start to disappear. In fact, just after they've disappeared at the bottom of the windscreen. And so this should be about the right place to stop. Once again, thank you for watching.